In your personal opinion, what is the biggest issue within the financial aid department?
I feel like the biggest issue is the lack of staff that they have. From what I'm hearing, they only have like 4 or 5 staff members trying to process all the 3,000 students that we have on campus, and I know that won't be able to get done in a timely manner, as well as, you know, people having issues and like Parent Plus loans trying to, and with them being a verification and everything, but I just know we just need more staff in order to process everything in a timely and, you know, in an effective manner.
My name is Mr. Sean Sims. I'm a financial aid counselor here at Savannah State University, and look forward to helping all of our students.
What do you think the biggest issue is amongst financial aid and the students of Savannah State?
I would say the biggest issue is information and education on what and how financial aid works. I think the biggest thing that I've seen between the student population, and I'll include parents and everybody else, and the actual process comes down to understanding what financial aid is and the correct way to go about applying and making sure that your information gets in in a timely manner. We find a lot of the delays and issues that students run into in the beginning of the semester are really a lot of things that can be avoided if they understand what they're doing and what they're putting onto the actual FAFSA application.
Lucci. I'm a resident director here at Savannah State University. The resident directors here on campus are the professional live-in staff members that help with student conduct. We collaborate with student life, and we also work on student educational programming for the students that live on campus.
How is it on move-in day when you have to give students the runaround when you have to give the news when their financial aid isn't together?
So on move-in days, it's pretty difficult because there's only so much we can do within our power. Change rooms, make sure maintenance is up to date, make sure that the rooms are clean. When it comes to things like financial aid, it's really difficult to kind of explain how we're not all connected to the financial aid department, which ends up leaving parents and students really embarrassed if they're not on our list. The major requirement for students to move in is they have to have a zero balance or have a payment plan set up as stated through the financial aid department. We get a list every morning, each new day the move-in process. Sometimes it'll be 3 days, sometimes it'll be 4, depending on how many classifications live in our building. And when they end up coming to our buildings and they're not cleared, it's a lot of emotional distress, especially coming from me and my staff, because there's only so much we can do and we want to help out more.
In the verification process, which is where most students get caught and the frustration arises from, verification is simply a process, whether it be randomly by the Department of Education or because of information that was put incorrectly on to the FAFSA where the issues arise. I emphasize to any student that's filling out the FAFSA to make sure that they read over the questions to make sure that they understand, and I say that it's not just the students, because it could be parents also that are completing the FAFSA, to make sure that they fully understand what the question is asking for before giving the answer, so that it doesn't result in those additional delays. Financial aid also, I think there's a lot of misperceptions of what it does and what it is. Financial aid does not guarantee that because you necessarily have a need that is not going to automatically cover the cost of what you need. That is a big misperception that a lot of students come into this situation with, and because what they perceive as a need within their family, and that's not to discount or take away from what the individual family financial situations are, a lot of that does not account for what FAFSA applies for within the awarding of aid for that particular student.
But it's also a lot of emotional distress coming from students and their parents, because then they have to, disrupt their routine. They're already nervous about dropping their students off, so then having to prolong that experience is only going to make them even more anxious and emotional. and then waiting in those super long lines. They come back in terrible moods. Some of them are completely uninterested in the joys of experiencing their kids' first time going to college, which is supposed to be like some super awesome crying, laughing, bonding experience. And it's really great to see, you know, all the smiling faces. But recently with the financial aid restrictions, it's been very difficult. It's not completely devoid of happiness. There's plenty of parents and students that come in and keep an open mind and are very patient with our, you know, financial aid department, but it does cause a lot of distress.
Your name was the most mentioned in my survey for most helpful staff member of financial aid. How does that make you feel?
That makes me feel great. From a standpoint personally, I feel I would not have per se said that I felt that I was the most helpful. I feel like, you know, personally, I do try to put forth my effort to give the highest level of customer service that I can give to the students that come into the office. But I'll be honest, I don't always know everything. That's why I do have to rely on the financial aid team in general. And that's one thing that I think everybody kind of takes for granted sometimes, is that we are a team that is comprised of people who have different strengths and weaknesses, just like any other team that you may participate in. If my strength is customer service, then by all means, I'll be the person who will be in the forefront, whereas there's other people in the office that have strengths that are just as valuable to making sure that the financial aid of students is processed. So to be honest with you, I definitely appreciate it. It is somewhat of a surprise, but I'll give the credit back to the team, not necessarily to myself.
What do you believe the financial aid can improve on?
Probably just, you know, maybe just like basic customer service skills, not saying they don't have that, but, you know, sometimes you can pick it up on the phone, like they're tired and they don't want to be here. So, you know, just try to be more in a cheerful manner when, you know, picking up the phones whenever they do, as well as, you know, having more staff in order to pick up the phones and then process everybody's financial aid in a timely manner.
What is one thing I guess college students should know coming from the office?
College students should know, get your financial aid, your FAFSA completed early as possible. The FAFSA opens up every year on October 1st for students to be able to complete the FAFSA application for the next year. That gives plenty of time. One of the things that FAFSA has done in the past to account for that is to allow for students to utilize, it requires actually the tax information from 2 years back. That rationale is to allow for students to be able to do the FAFSA early, recognizing that you probably won't have the tax information for that current year. So I just say get it done early. And then lastly, this is the biggest one. If you don't understand, please ask questions. That's what we're here for. If you not sure what to put on the question, we are here to assist in the filling out of the FAFSA. We're here to assist with any questions. Not to mention there's a lot of other information and education that's out there on the internet that can help assist students in that process also.